All right. Sorry about the slight delay. Facebook was hiccuping, not allowing us to go live, but it looks like we got it all sorted out. Welcome to Live at the Hive, episode 41.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's consistency, except for the one.
The blackout.
Nearest blackout day.
Yeah, I'm just jinxed. It's all good.
No, the jinx is over.
Oh yeah, it's over. This is my third time ever live. Oh.
That's right. That's right. And we appear to be good to go. Yep. So on today's episode, Nir is taking control as floor manager.
Producer.
What's up?
Floor producer, floor manager. That's right.
Yeah.
She is going to. Oh, which one is it? I think I would have gone live twice. Sorry, I'm the production guy. So I got stuff going on over here and over there. So Nira's going to kick it off. First, we're starting with what's new. So Nira?
Yeah, so for what's new, if some of you may not know, YouTube just shut down a spooky, scary ad, specifically for a new horror film that came out for The Nun.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen the video before, it literally is just a few seconds of total darkness and the volume going down, and suddenly, boom, you see like the scary nun. And they took it down for an ad because it contained too much blood and it was likely to shock and scare its viewers.
Well, let's dig into that. There it is.
There's
the. Yeah.
Isn't that a lovely shot?
That's a nice one, eh?
That's,
Yeah.
A+ makeup right there.
There you go. So this one's kind of interesting. I think there's a couple of elements in here.
Yeah.
One is YouTube's advertising policy group probably shouldn't have allowed this in the first place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising how it got through the cracks there, but
Well, this isn't the first time we've seen something like an ad that came out that fell through the cracks, though.
yeah.
Yeah, no, there's tons, and you can actually see as we're doing advertising, we can see all sorts of things for everything that's banned on Google: pornography, sports betting, dating sites, all sorts of stuff that gets through those cracks. And they're always trying to game the system, but this one seems a little more straightforward, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's almost like the best possible press that like a horror movie could get. You know what I mean? Banned from YouTube ads for being too scary.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it, right?
Yeah, there is a Twitter user actually in the article who shared a warning, and her tweet was already retweeted over almost 130,000 times. So it's definitely gaining traction.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like a little bit of shock and awe. Okay, you got banned, but you got 134,000 retweets. You got tons of coverage. And Matt, I think you were mentioning before that people are going to go out and try to find the video now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
I mean, when I saw this article and I kind of scrolled through it to see if they linked to the video, they didn't. So I was like out snooping for the video, and I think that's one of the best things that can happen if you have people actively looking for your content. I think that's one of the best things to do.
Nira's really, really gunning to just take over, take me out of this spot completely.
I think we actually do have the ad. If you can scroll up, it's just if you click that link. Yep. So it'll take you to just a YouTube page, which shows up the ad itself.
Oh, I don't know.
Do we want to do it? April's making comments already.
Oh, so there's a trigger warning. I forget. You gotta actually have to do that in terms of cases like these. There's a trigger warning if you get scared easily.
Well, let's see what it's.
Yeah, it's literally just that.
That wasn't that scary.
Yeah, but so the thing is that it's because you knew what was happening. There were probably people at 3 a.m. watching some type of video, and that just sort of comes up at you. So that's kind of, I guess, why the users were freaking out over it.
Well, now you can see it's kind of going viral, the Nun volume ad. Skip. So now people are making videos about the video. So again, it's one of these things where it's the producers and the directors of the film are probably thrilled about this kind of campaign.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Well, companies in general like a good scandal because yes, it does look bad on one sense, but on the other hand, look at all this free PR that they're getting.
Yeah.
No, totally. And I think in general, this does lead to, I think it's a good segue if I can find my tab I'm supposed to be on. That would be the best.
So I'll just sort of jump in. So speaking of people and things getting banned on YouTube, some of you might already know the Alex Jones fiasco. One of the or social media platforms that were kind of hesitant in taking down Alex Jones was Twitter. And so what 71K Twitter users had done was block major brands like Nike, Pepsi, and the lot, which causes them to not be able to promote their ads on Twitter, and therefore this is adding pressure on Twitter, like, hey, okay, maybe we should, you know, we should maybe do something about this Alex Jones character, because it's hurting a lot of these big brands.
Yeah, well, this is fairly common in terms of influencing major advertisers. It's pretty easy for a community to do that. They don't want the controversy.
Yeah.
They don't want to be shown. I think that's again leads to things like the Nun. But for example, I think it was last week, Volvo found out that their ads were running on PewDiePie's channel, which is one of the largest channels on YouTube, if not the largest.
Yep.
But the thing is it's totally not their market, and they didn't want to be on,
Like
associated
his channel,
with his content.
Yep.
So I think what it goes to show you is that these ad platforms, although they're monstrous now, are basically like if you had like a Great Dane, but it's a puppy, you know, and it's kind of goofy, and it runs into you and it jumps on you and it weighs 95 pounds or 100 pounds. That's what these platforms are like. Google's 15 years old, right? But they still don't have a lot of this figured out. And I think it becomes apparent when you start to see these examples that they sometimes don't even know when something is going to appear. And in this case, we were just talking about it before, Jack Dorsey and the Twitter team had a meeting with journalists in in San Francisco, basically saying, we don't know the answer to this, like what we should allow and what the line of free speech is versus, blocking and discriminating and shutting things down that are offensive. So, and I think the other thing that we brought up that we were talking about too is there is obviously in the United States, in every country, not every country, but in the Western ones, in the United States, the free speech, our charters of rights and freedoms here in Canada, technically those don't apply because it's a private corporate website.
Exactly.
Right? And now they're being technically tasked with becoming the censor, and none of them want to be.
No.
Right? So some of the interesting things in here that came out of it too, there was some talk here about the far-right news site Breitbart lost 90% of its advertisers from similar campaigns, right?
We see this too often on Twitter. I mean, even after some of the mass shootings in the States, people were taking up arms and making sure brands were dropping sponsors left and right, and it was basically all stemming through Twitter. And it's just amazing to see how Twitter users are taking down big brands almost like it's nothing, right? Just pressuring them, backing them in a corner.
Yeah. And it's one of those things on Twitter. Twitter tends to be can be a very argumentative place.
Absolutely. More so than Facebook sometimes.
If you've been there, and Facebook, and this is, there's like a cultural divisiveness that's happening. But then you can see now brands are going to be stuck in the middle, right?
Exactly.
Swing one way, definitely, obviously more to the center is where they're going to sit.
Yep.
But you can rest assured that there's another wave coming from the other direction as well. So complicated times, but definitely interesting to see the power of the consumer. And in a lot of ways, this is the power of social media, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a segue for later into our PR discussions about what is PR, what is public relations now in 2018, because it certainly isn't what it was even a few years ago.
No.
That's for sure.
Absolutely.
And speaking about the consumer influence on social media platforms, we also have another article for you where we found 53% of consumers are more likely to purchase from brands that are transparent on social media. I think this is a recurring theme within marketing. Brands and users love to see transparency. I know for a personal example, it wasn't necessarily like a marketing firm, but there is a YouTube channel called SciShow, and I believe that generally they like to go into things all related to science, and they a while ago had released a video about Polaroid lenses on their glasses, and they got some of the facts wrong, and so more recently they submitted or released another video saying hey, this previous video we kind of got some of the facts wrong, we're here to set the record straight. And that's great, because as a consumer I love to see things like that, because it shows that you're humble enough to not only tell me that you've made a mistake, but now I'm going to trust you more and see you as more of a credible source because you actually fact check the rest of your videos, your content.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes, just on to the side here, I think people get a little bit too over their heads when their brand or something gets a little bit of like bad press or bad I guess bad feedback from your customers, right? You tend to kind of try and spin things in your favor, when in the opposite, it's just like full-blown transparency is what people want to see, it's what people appreciate, and it's what people will come back to you for.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things, and we do this when we manage our social accounts for our clients, is really helping them understand what to do with the outrage and the shock and upset customers. And we actually have a formula that we know works fairly well on a very consistent basis, and it involves, in fact, simply coming out, acknowledging that person. We literally have like a breakdown in terms of how you write this to them. So you acknowledge that individual personally, but by name. You thank them for their honesty, candor, whatever. Whatever you want. Let them know that you'd like to take it offline directly via email or a direct phone number, and then provide a name at the end of it.
It's more personalized.
So it's personalized, and they know who to ask for, right? And what we do find happens in those scenarios is your most vocal critic will become your best advocate when they're happy, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're fired up because they're out there, because they're passionate about something, and they're talking, and if you can get them to flip a 180, you then have an advocate. If you ignore them,
it's only going to fester into,
and get worse and worse.
Builds. Yeah.
And look, no matter what you do in whatever business you're in, having a perfect customer review is impossible. I mean, you would want that, but it's how you deal with the problems when they happen that I think comes down to the thing. And that's incredibly important in social media. And I think more and more consumers are expecting brands to behave like their customers, you would hope. Right?
Yeah.
Wendy's.
Like more customers are expecting their, like, these companies to sort of take ownership and take responsibility for their actions, and especially like for millennials themselves, like as one. So I feel like I can speak for the rest of my generation, but we can really
You're speaking for all of you.
Yeah, all of you. I'm basically your queen. It's okay. No, but to bring it back, you know, it is a well-known fact that as millennials we can pretty much smell, for the lack of better words, like BS from a mile away. So if we see something that kind of seems like a content video, but then we see it as an ad or commercial, we're instantly turned off because we feel like as a company you just lied to us. So, and also at the same time, when we see company taking ownership, we kind of almost forget the fact that, like, you know, oh, so and so, this customer might have had, like, you know, a bad review of something. It's more so like, wow, this company took this bad review, and rather than just sweeping it under the rug, they acknowledged it, and now they're doing something about it. Cool. I feel like I can now rely on this company, and maybe if I have a problem, I feel confident that their customer service reps or someone on their marketing team can come help me out.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the most notable cases of something like that happening would be with the airlines recently, with people getting pulled off flights and things, and some of the situations weren't dealt with properly by some of the airlines, and it just goes to show that if you don't have a plan for this, or you're not being transparent and open and understanding with your customers, it's not good. Like, it's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, and I think there's a large part of it actually comes from the powers that be inside of these organizations diminish the importance of social media and who is supposed to do it. And we often get inquiries from people like, can you do our social? And the answer is we can help, but we can't do it for you because we are not you. And in order to be you, you have to take that inside, and you have to have an evangelist that's gonna really make people understand that social media is literally the current state of the internet. So it's not even age specific anymore. I think seniors and Generation Xers and millennials and Gen Zs and pretty much everybody, when you go to buy something or you're gonna go to buy a service, if there is a social media presence, whether it's a Facebook page, you can see what other people, you know, what other people's comments were and what other people's feedback was and what's the voice of the company. It's a hugely powerful way to communicate, especially when, you know, if you have that strong social media coverage, doesn't matter if you're a one-person shop or if you're working at a Fortune 500 or a Fortune 50. If you're able to be found and people can see you and they can interact with you, you're moving them through your funnel. You're making a sale so that by the time they get to you, they're hopefully ready to go.
Absolutely.
Right? So the investment is definitely worth it. And the funny thing is here is, in this one, was that, so this was Sprout Social doing this, but only 15% of the people that responded to this survey thought that brands were being very transparent. So a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely.
And certainly not just spinning a line, the typical customer service line.
Yeah.
And you see this often. One of the things, if you're running social for your business and you have maybe a template for an apology, change the template up. Because if you have a bunch of something happened, whatever, maybe there's a slew of late deliveries or whatever, everybody can see your timeline. And so if it looks like you're copying and pasting,
far back, yeah, it's all there.
Yeah, copy and paste responses will make people even more upset.
Yeah, and it's human nature to detect patterns, so you do want to switch it up. Like, and that's not just apologies, but like anything in your marketing, you don't want to be kind of copy and pasting the content, for instance, over and over, because eventually people are going to be like, pretty sure I did this last week and the week before and the month before. Yeah, okay, I'm moving on.
Yeah. And the other one, 1/3 of respondents would purchase more from brands if their CEO demonstrates transparency on social media. And we do this with everything. I mean, our Instagram is very much behind the scenes and the people. You know, we do the live every week and we mix it up so everybody on the team gets a chance to kind of come to the forefront. And we've had customers, especially in the last couple of months, as we've gotten to a volume of these lives, have said, went and saw some of your live streams on Facebook and on YouTube. Yeah. So no, we don't get the biggest numbers in terms, we're pretty niche, but that's okay, right? Because it's serving our purpose. So, all right, we should move along, floor production manager.
So I think now Matt's gonna take the stage with talking about some of the Google OSs and how it's been entering the medical world.
Yeah, for sure. So Google's German partner, GN Hearing, has created hearing aids that integrates with Android devices. So this is enabling people, creating a wider audience of audio consumption for people. So basically, it connects via Bluetooth just in your ear, and you can stream any audio source that you would have, whether it be music, whether it be I guess you could be like an audiobook, something like that, or even just like text-to-speech as well.
Yeah, Siri.
Yeah.
Anything that would be accessibility options on your Android device, or I guess there's iPhone references too here, isn't there?
Yeah.
Apple references in here.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I mean, this is medical technology, kind of leveraging what everybody. If you have all of the elements there. It will bring it to the masses because it'll be inexpensive. It won't be another device that they have to get and wear. And in terms of accessibility, if you have a website or if you have a web app or a product, you certainly want to have accessibility in order for people to make it easy to either purchase from you or sign up or do whatever, right?
Yeah,
so definitely very cool. In the accessibility world, and we do a lot of accessibility with our clients in terms of how websites deliver. Are they Alexa and Google Assistant ready? So it's just another thing to kind of tuck into the old notebook and wait to see what happens with this. But this technology does go in line with some of the stuff we've talked about before, which is specifically voice and text and now accessibility, especially with an aging population. Right?
Absolutely. In the next couple of years, this technology is going to be used more and more. I mean, in the article right here, it says the World Health Organization estimates that there are 466 million people with hearing loss or hard of hearing.
What?
Yeah.
You saw that one.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, I mean,
all weekend, guys.
I mean, all the technology that's coming out is starting to enable all these accessibility like changes. So for example, I was talking earlier about Google and Alexa and how, I mean, day to day we might not shop with our Alexa or Google, but someone who has vision problems or even with the hearing aid, like hearing loss, that's probably going to be one of the primary sources to shop for things that they might need.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a huge market. Like you said, with an aging population, the more accessible you can make your product and your service, the you're going to win. If you don't, you're basically cutting out a fairly large proportion your addressable potential audience.
Absolutely, and people are already taking advantage of the technology that we already have to create different services, like maybe not like an actual physical product, but something that uses these tools to help other people from around the world. So I brought up beforehand, I have an app called Be My Eyes, and basically it's a free app on the App Store. You can get it on Google or Android, and it basically pairs you up with an individual. Tends to be worldwide, but you can also zone it to like North America or Europe or whatever, and it joins you with a person of blindness or poor sight, and it basically puts you on a call with them where you're able to read something for them or pick something out, and you can send it back their way.
So are you like a sighted volunteer?
So I'm a volunteer, but the thing is that there's only a couple 100,000 people with blindness or low vision on there, but there's millions of volunteers, so it's very rare that you actually get a call or anything like that because there's so many volunteers, right?
Okay.
Which is good, yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a great service. As soon as I heard about it, I was like, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's technology helping people, and it's technology that you already have, and it's no cost, right?
And this is a relatively low-tech solution.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Just pairing
so
people
simple.
up. Yeah. No, I think it's fantastic. Definitely.
Because you're just on a live video call, and it's something as simple as, like, I guess someone who's visually impaired trying to hold up their camera phone and being like, hey, can you help me check the expiry date?
Yeah.
And then
Is
maybe
my milk expired?
Yeah.
Like something we take for granted, right? Yeah.
Very cool.
I want to sign up for this.
There you go.
for
Yeah,
showing this to
I
me.
haven't gotten one yet, but I'm excited.
Good on you. You're such a good human being.
I try.
Such a good human
I try.
being. Okay, so moving along, bringing it back to our Google search friends. I personally work on PPC here at Honeypot, and this new article kind of gave me a bit of excitement. I know we've talked about before going into featured snippets. If you wanted to bring up maybe an example of a featured snippet.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks. So usually with your featured snippet, like if you were to type in something in your search query, you would have like maybe like.
There's one.
Yep, right there. So we have an example of one
So
right now.
that's the Google My Business featured snippet.
Yeah.
I'll show you a bunch of others.
So if you saw in the Google My Business, you got things like the address, the phone number. So I know personally, if I'm ever trying to make a reservation, it's so easy to just look it up and click just from that featured snippet and get the call going.
Yep.
I can even do it from my car because it's integrated with Android Auto, so I can do something as simply within my car as like call charcoal group. Boom, in 2 seconds I can make a reservation.
That was a shameless plug for the charcoal group.
Yeah, so you know, hello. Sponsor me. Anyways.
Sponsor me. I want free food.
Their food is good. I went there for my birthday and whew. Anyways, back to marketing. So with the new featured snippet, they've introduced things like subtopics. So if you were to Google something like quartz versus granite, not only can you just get a base description of what quartz is, but you can go into subtopics like cost, benefits, weight, durability, and it's basically Google's just trying to make things a bit more comprehensive and easier for the end user to make sure that you can get as much information as possible from your query.
Sure. Yeah, so featured snippets are a very big deal for Google in general. There are a ton of formats that are involved with them. So for example, that's a featured snippet. I'm just gonna pull up a couple here and a couple of new ones. There's another one, that's the question and answer snippet, if you can see that. Part of this is featured snippets are actually a massive push on the web for what's called structured data. HTML, like you have in web pages, is what's called unstructured data. There's nothing in there that actually identifies what the information is specifically about. And it makes it very, very difficult to index, organize, and then display the information because no one's got a singular standard that they go by, right?
Yep.
So Google has been, and it's called a schema. Schema.org is like the open standard, like TCP/IP is for internet connectivity. The schema is the open standard, and Google is implementing it in what they call featured snippets. Yeah. And now what they're doing is, so the quartz versus granite example is there to give you more ways to show an answer to a question and more options, because what the understanding is, and this isn't the greatest this isn't the greatest image, yeah. It's a little low res, and it won't go any bigger. is that there isn't one canonical answer of quartz versus whatever. Quartz versus what? Granite. There isn't one answer. Like, there isn't one source that is the answer necessarily, right? So Google's trying to pull up the most relevant. So as an example here, if you can see here, now Wikipedia being trusted is one thing, but if I were to look at how did the Romans tell time at night, and that's Kentucky Educational Television, is that necessarily the best source? So what they're doing is, and it will be actually directly on the Google site if I can get there, is giving you more ways to get multiple answers. So if I scroll down here, you can see here that you're going to have how to set up call forwarding. There's going to be a carousel here as well that will allow you to show other answers. Cool. So instead of just scrolling more down the page, Google is using different dimensions and different ways to present all that information. The opportunity there from a business or marketing perspective is formatting for featured snippets is important. Using things like Google My Business, which is a really easy interface into that. Yep. So last month we got 27 phone calls and we had over 3,000 image views and something like 100, I just got the report today, I think it was 149 map lookups.
Nice.
And we post images, we post articles, little articles here, and we can do a Q&A, which we're going to implement because that's a new one. These are all featured snippets, and they're all incredibly important in terms of how you craft your digital presence in Google today, because this is fairly new stuff as it's rolling out. So I think definitely worth, having your site produce these featured snippets. There's a ton of them. There's probably over 15 different types of featured snippets, reviews, recipes, locations, weather, all sorts of different things you can take advantage of. So definitely worth the investment.
Absolutely.
That's
for sure.
That's a good blog content topic. Now I think about it.
It is, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just throwing that in there. So moving straight along, but still within the realm of Google AdWords. So a while ago on our show, we kind of talked about responsive search ads getting a bit more real estate, and we've now seen in a Search Engine Land article that by the end of August, you should be able to add a third headline and a second description with as long as 90 characters. And for someone who loves to write a lot, this is great news for me because just to give you a real life example, even today, my coworker and I were trying to build some ads for a client, and sometimes just like that 80 character limit can be very frustrating because sometimes you'll have like this great description for an ad and it's like 81 characters and you're just like, great, now I got to figure out, where else something else to cut. And sort of like going into some strategies, maybe you can also, Dan, you can chime in. So for me personally, whenever I try to write ads and I find that it's obvious I'm going to go over the limit, I kind of just write everything that I want to say in the headlines and the description, like clearly go over the limit, and then start cutting back from there. So I don't start with the restrictive strategy. I try to go big and then come back from there. And that's kind of my way, how I've so far gotten around these character limits. How about you? Do you have like your own sort of thing that you do?
Yeah, it's called word reduction. And a CTA library. I think typically when people write, they use a lot of connective words as opposed to getting right to the point. It is a challenging thing to do. I used to, when we had at one point a very large stable of somewhat traditional writers on the team. So one of the first tasks I would give them would be to go write like 60 Google ads with the text limits. It is not easy. It is an art form. And it's an art form to figure out how to say a lot in a very small amount of space. The biggest things that I can give advice in terms of writing those ads is building out a persona document, finding the pain points of the consumer, find the solution to the pain points, and then those will be your CTAs, and those will be your titles and your headlines, and then keep a CTA library that you can go back to, and then use all of those. But word reductions, getting to the point, like very, very quickly, and it's not easy.
No,
and it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, that's for sure. I remember like back when I started, it would take me I think almost an hour when I was working with Katie trying to get ads, and more recently it's just so much faster. So it's just straight up like getting better practice with it.
It's one of those things. It's like you could read a book about how to play the piano all your life, and you're never going to play the piano well unless you play the piano.
Yeah.
And I say it to people sometimes, and I'm like, you know how you have to do it to improve at it. You can't talk about it. You got to do it, right? Yeah. This is one of those great examples. So I'm infamous for being one character over. It's like the curse of my existence. I'm always one character over.
Yeah.
That's us too.
It happens to me almost every time. So you get 10 extra characters, and then the other thing is the third headline and second description. So it's nice to know that this is coming out, and Google's obvious, like it's pretty obvious what they're doing here across the board. A lot of this is mobile delivery. Again, just the massive rise of mobile everywhere, and certainly something that you should really take advantage of, because these are new formats and changes to Google Ads. And I think now that the Google Ads interface is out, it's going to start getting hot and heavy. They're going to start putting out a lot more new formats
for sure
in that process. So now we're talking about...
Yeah, I think that sort of wraps up what's new. Now we're going to transition to what's working.
Squeeze some PR in here.
Yeah.
Squeeze some PR in here. We got 10 minutes. You know, we'll talk about account-based marketing next week.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We'll give the last few minutes to PR.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I feel like I've been talking a lot this
Oh, you're doing
this
good.
episode.
Yeah.
You're doing
good. Yeah.
Well, the whole point of being on the live stream is to talk a lot.
Yeah, true.
If we're being self-critical, you could slow it down a bit.
Wow, okay.
No, it's true. When you speak on the stage, like were you ever in theater?
No.
You should be in theater.
Yeah, I could definitely see you. You have the energy for it.
Westy Wen joined us on Periscope. I'm watching Periscope right now.
Okay.
Is anyone watching Facebook?
We're watching Facebook right now, yeah.
I have it up here.
Anyways,
funny
you've
'cause
never been on stage?
No,
You should be on...
it's funny because like in high school I was kind of just like always, all the sciences, all the maths and all of that, and then growing up my mom's just like, why don't you just take drama? You're so dramatic. And I'm like, wow, okay.
And when Nira joined the team, I was like, oh, she seems really reserved. And then within like 3 hours, I heard yelling from the other side of the office. No, when you're in theater, they always say talk half as quickly as you think you're talking on a stage.
Oh my God,
Because you
that's so hard.
naturally, well, that's an exaggeration probably, right?
Yeah.
So.
No, it's true. I kind of like go through a bunch of video content every other weekend, so I can, I'm sort of like going through it, so I can definitely see, when you're going a bit too fast, when you're a bit too passionate about the topic. It happens, but it is something to keep in mind.
Totally.
Lots to talk about.
No, it's all good. Okay, so PR in 2018. Let's talk about that.
Okay. I think at school, I mean, we just covered so many different areas of whether it be communications or marketing, even customer service. It's just grown into a big umbrella now, and you can fit so much into it, and it can go so far for you. Whether it's, driving more traffic to a website, PR can be beneficial. Backlinks is a great way that I like to use PR too with press releases. Just giving that a little bit of extra twist. Brand awareness and increasing the media coverage to ideal sites.
Yeah, totally.
And we've been doing this a lot within the past couple weeks, Dan, is just creating that media coverage to ideal sites and growing something beyond just sending out that press release every now and then, you know what I mean? Or just, I think all too often, some PR professionals sometimes just get into the habit of throwing out something on the wire and not really going and engaging with anyone, or just going straight to journalists and thinking that, okay, well, I tried journalists, that's it, that's all I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things is that, so PR professionals, so what we're doing right now without naming the client is we are coordinating 4 fairly well-sized PR firms out of New York and Los Angeles. So it's kind of cool. But what happens is I think in the world of PR, and this doesn't matter again, if you're local, you try to figure out how to get PR, there are 2 ways to get public relations and publicity in media, which now means blogs, social influencers, newspaper sites, local community sites, right? So you think about it, 25 years ago, it was like newspaper, radio, television, call it a day. That's all you've got. Well, now you've got this much more diverse landscape, right? So what does PR mean? PR means a lot of social, it means a lot more different things than it used to.
Absolutely.
Right? And the world of the PR agency fundamentally hasn't changed that much.
No.
Every PR firm will say, no, absolutely, we are on top of this because they know they have to say that. But they are relationship driven. They will have personal relationships with people in media. They will go out on the wire when they need to. They'll have email lists that they'll use for different verticals and things like that. But in terms of the strategy that we brought to the table was, so we basically took this, and this is something you can do. We created a best practices guide, and we said, our goal is to gain inbound links from blogs, websites, even on social media, to these specific areas, right?
Yep.
This is how we want you to talk about the product, and here are the various products that you can use in the space, and there's probably these good. We gave so many options to the PR teams that they would absolutely be able to find a placement anywhere.
Yeah.
So what's ended up happening is, I think right now, and these are pretty high profile sites, like they're decent sites. They're regional news sites, there's some national news sites, the Independent Times, the Times of India as well, covered a bunch of our stuff. Yeah. And those are very powerful links. Now, we don't always get the links in, but what it does is it does two things. One, it drives traffic directly, but more importantly is it gives us authority in the search engines. And we have seen this is a very competitive, this example is a very competitive space. We have seen dramatic uplift in the last 2 weeks in our search engine rankings because of this strategy, right? So when a PR person hears, well, you know, we really want the links because our most valuable customers come from search, that's not to say we don't want the valuable media hit, but we can serve two purposes, right?
Absolutely. And I think to that point, people sometimes focus a little bit too much on just the publicity and stuff like that, and not really taking in this type of strategy that we have going on. And I mean, even with press releases, we have a great blog piece on our website, basically SEO optimizing your press releases and making sure that yes, while you might have one that is appealing for a pitch, it might not necessarily benefit your site that much well. You know what I mean? So making sure that you're like adding backlinks into your press release, how your press release is receiving these backlinks too.
Yep. That's awesome. And I just got a note, and again, I'm not saying who it is, but we just got a hit on USA Today with a direct link.
No way.
Literally just happened.
Wow.
So getting an inbound link from USA Today is a very powerful link, right? It has a lot of authority in Google's eyes. So that's it. So let's just walk it back a bit, because a lot of people aren't working in that kind of a space where you've got all these resources. Yeah. But let's say you've got a Shopify e-commerce store, right? And maybe you just launched it. Well, public relations is like it's always been important. It hasn't changed. You got to get your name out there, right? And putting together a simple, maybe you're brick and mortar, maybe you're not. But let's say with Shopify, even if you are brick and mortar, you're not brick and mortar. You have a digital presence, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then what you're able to do is build local relationships with charities, build local relationships with people in media and that have local blogs. So I think there's now there's a couple in Cambridge, the town I'm from, right? Small town. I think it's Cambridge Now or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of the site. It's a local blog that people read when there's like, you know, the festivals here and Santa Claus Day is here and right, let's all go to City Hall and blah, blah, blah. But it's easy to reach out to them. I've talked to them on Twitter a number of times. You can make a relationship with people like that, and they're in every city and every town. Exactly. Right?
Yeah. I actually just sent you a link there. It's from the Waterloo Chronicle. It's a new business that's coming to town, and it's just the way that they structured this article. It's very local PR. It's very kind of it's very appealing to a local audience, which I think is great.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Let me just, I gotta pull this up here, sorry.
Okay. But yeah, it's one of the new Anchor bars, and it's called Anchor Bar, and it's expected to sell 3,000 pounds of wings daily. Yeah, but I can't put it up. And I mean, just the way that they've structured this article, when I first saw it to me, I thought to myself, yeah, this is a PR piece. someone pitched this to someone and it just went straight through.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a it's the same thing as any PR, but it's just locally driven, right?
Exactly.
Here, I'm gonna paste it up here into the live. Sorry, but to that point, one of the things that you can always do is make local media relationships. Like, just do a Google search, find those things. Local staff writers and writers are always hungry for things that are happening locally. Right? So if you have a small business and you're getting involved with a charity like the United Way, maybe you come up with a clever event to integrate your product, then call the local paper, find them on Twitter, reach out to them. You've got a great opportunity to do your own PR, right?
Exactly.
The second thing you can do is build up a stable of influencers on social media. The myth is, I think, that you have to pay influencers, and it's true at some point, depending on how you approach them, you do. But if you are starting out, and if you're a startup, for example, other startups will help other startups. Other small businesses will help other small businesses. It depends on how you position yourself. If you position yourself as a corporate entity coming in, they're going to ask you for money. If you position yourself as, let's say I've got a watch store on Shopify, and I love watches. Well, if you're passionate about watches for real, which I hope you are if you're selling them, find other designers and people that are in the space and talk to them about the watches and start to build that relationship first and tell them your story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think free content was one of the things we were talking about too. Yeah, they love free content and using it. You know what I mean? It's great.
So, nice segue in terms of free content. Infographics. We are currently producing a wickedly large number of them right now, because they work. They work really well. And we repurpose them and we make different types of infographics for different settings. We'll tailor some for social to get the word out there. We do some for press so that they are able to put something that's visually pleasing into their article, which gives you branding and awareness. And bloggers love it because it's free content, right? Giving out that valuable free content. And this is another trick with anybody in media. We tend to try to write things for the blogger or the writer, and not to say we're taking stuff off their plate. Like, if you think, example, if you work at USA Today and you're a journalist, you have like deadlines, and some of them are incredibly aggressive. I think it was, I don't want to say it was BuzzFeed necessarily, but I've heard stories of writers that have 3 deadlines a day.
I don't doubt it, especially right now down there.
That's, you're writing 3 full-on articles or posts every single day to meet your deadline. So you need content and you need it fast, and it needs to be good. So any help that you can get
just makes it easier.
Makes it much easier. And then the last thing you can do, and everybody should do this, is build up a media and influencer list in MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or Constant Contact or whatever email marketing platform, and actually have a place on your site with a custom form where media can pick up your logos, but they have to register for it. They will. And then you'll have a media list that you can send messages and emails to when you have something to say.
Exactly.
Right? And build up your library so that you're able to do that. So, but I guess at the end of the day, PR is not what it used to be. PR is a lot of social media. It's bloggers are included in there, influencers. So yeah, the notion of, you know, the Rolodex and spinning out, it's on the wire, the 3-3 at the bottom or whatever.
No more. That way's dead.
But you need the wire as well, because you can do stuff.
I mean, I'm not saying all this to say that the wire is still not good. I mean, the wire is still essential in some points. But I'm just saying that there's things that you can do that go beyond just throwing it on the wire and calling it a day, or phone up food like journalists and ask them what they got. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. All right, it's 5:05. It's Friday. TGIF. I'm going camping.
Nice.
Saturday night with the boys. I have karaoke night tomorrow. That's fun.
Yeah, that's good times. And then I'm going to the annual Dusan Adelko Foundation You Don't Even Know Invitational. It's not an invitational. It's kids disc golf tournament.
Yep.
6th annual. So that'll be Sunday in beautiful Port Colborne.
Wow.
It's supposed to be nice.
Yeah, I hope so.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. All right. Karaoke night. What else do you do? What are you doing?
I don't know. We have a couple things on the fence going up right now, and we're trying to decide what we're doing. So.
Nice. Nothing
So-
you want to say on air?
No, I mean, like I think like we were half thinking about going up to Tobermory and
Okay.
then half not. We like our road trips, so.
Nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see
Yeah.
you next